Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Hope everybody's doing good out there. So today I'm going to try something a little different than my other art videos that I've done. I am going to talk while I paint. Usually I do voiceover. So we'll see how this goes. I don't know. If it doesn't work out for some reason, I will just switch over to voiceover. But as you can see, I have a couple paintings that I did. I did these, oh gosh, I think they were last year. And they're owls, you can see, and these are in gouache. I really like gouache. I'm going to do gouache today, so I was thinking, I like to do owls, and I really like the desert because I live in the desert. And it is spring now, and there's a full moon coming up, April 12th, I believe, which it's called the pink moon. And I had to look it up why it was called the pink moon, and it's called the pink moon because of the pink phlox, natural phlox flowers that bloom during this time. So that's why it's called the pink moon. And sometimes there is a pink, I guess, glow to the sky this time of the year, something like that. But mainly it's because of the phlox flowers that bloom this time of the year. I hope I'm in the camera here. Anyway, so I thought I'm going to try and paint a painting that looks like one of these. And I think, it's not going to be exactly like either one of these because it's always hard to duplicate a painting. It's always going to turn out different, right? So I think I'm going to use this color palette or something very similar to this color palette because some of the colors that I had when I did this, I no longer have. They dried up on me. So I have some other ones to substitute with. So this is going to be the painting I'm going to try and do for you guys. It's gouache, and then I used some gel pens with some little accents, as you can see here. But it's just a few places I use my little gel pen, but it's mostly all gouache. So we'll try and do this today. See how it goes. So I'm using a 5x7 piece of cold pressed paper, and I cut it out of a pad that I have. I'm using this Legion Stonehenge Aqua Cold Press. I use it for watercolors and gouache. I like it. It's got a really, I don't know if it shows up on camera, it's got a really soft texture and feel to it. It's I don't know, and it's a really good price too. I usually order it on Amazon, but I've also found it in like art stores. Oops, I just hit this. Art stores and such. But so we're gonna use this, and what I did, I don't know if you can see, it's on a block, but I cut it out of the block. And then what I did is I ripped the edges because I think it looks kind of cool like that. So I ripped the edges, and like I said, it's 5x7. And usually, I usually paint smaller. I don't know. I just like painting smaller. I one of these days I'm going to attempt to paint bigger. We'll see how that goes. And then the gouache I'm going to be using is white, of course. I always use white gouache. Pretty common to use white. Oh, wait. You know what? Hold on. Okay, so let's start over again. Hopefully this is okay. So I'm going to use Winsor & Newton Permanent Green. I got two whites. Look at, I got a titanium white, which is M gram, and then I have a Shinhan permanent white. I'll probably use I'm going to try this one, titanium white. Burnt sienna, Holbein. Another brand I use sometimes. Permanent yellow, Shinhan. Ivory black, Shinhan. And scarlet red, Shinhan. So, to make a long, gabby story short, these are the colors. I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about brands sometimes, especially if you're just starting out. These are the colors I'm going to be using. White, of course, and black, because those are the two colors you use to lighten or darken your colors with. So, permanent yellow, scarlet red, burnt sienna, maybe, and permanent green. And I will tell you as I go what I'm using. All right. Now that I got everybody confused, it's time to tape down the paper. Yeah, we'll see how I do with this, talking and painting. I might just, if you see me fast forwarding through this, and then adding voiceover, you don't know why. Because it's either this video just ends up being way too long, or I'm just gabbing too much, I'm having too much issues, or whatever. Sorry, this tape, you know, we're building a cabin, and my hands are just like a mess. We're building it ourselves, and my hands are like a mess from building the cabin. And they're dry and cracked, and my nails are breaking, blah, 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 blah. So, what is going on? Look at, see? Anyway, I just put a bunch of lotion on my hands. I thought maybe that's why this tape wasn't sticking. But that's not why this tape isn't sticking. It just doesn't like sticking to this. Well, okay. Well, let's fix it and put it on here. Hopefully, let's go like this. Hopefully that whole picture, that whole thing shows up in there. We'll try this. Oh my gosh, see? That's what happens when you're trying to do something. I'm not live, but doing something, you know, while I'm talking. And okay, so this tape that I got just didn't like sticking to that. This is like I use it sometimes, not very often. It's like an old chalkboard. You know, lots of times I'll just sometimes I use like just cardboard or this. I use this for most of my videos. But I'm gonna just like try different stuff. I have this other thing I like. It's like a Lazy Susan. You can turn it, and that works out good. All right, so this painting, I'm not really gonna. Sorry, this is my coffee. When I did these, you know, like I said, I'm really bad with my other videos. I don't plan, and I should plan more. I do plan some painting, especially if I'm doing really like detailed paintings, like cityscapes, some animals that I like a more realistic look for paintings. I will plan and draw them out. But sometimes I like just painting and, you know, seeing what happens. And like these ones, I did not draw anything out. I'm not going to draw anything out on this. I just painted and just went with it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a mixture of yellow and some burnt sienna and maybe some green. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work, it's kind of going to be a wet. I'm going to put water on here and wet, and I'm going to paint. And then come back, add the black, come back and add the black. And because see how they're both different. Because when I paint first, I paint this first. You know, kind of the background. Paint the background first. Add some water and just see how it looks when it dries. Then the way it dries is how it determines on how I do the landscape or the hills in the back. You'll see as I go. Okay, so I squirted some of my permanent yellow, burnt sienna, and scarlet red, and I'm going to do the background now. And this is going to be a wet on wet background first. Just making a pretty color. Look at that. Oh my god. I love that color. Burnt sienna with that yellow. It's not pretty. Okay. Let's see how this goes. So with gouache, when you paint, I don't like this tape. Gouache, when you paint it, you start normally. You don't have to, but you start normally with darker colors, kind of like acrylic. Darker colors, then you go lighter as you layer, right? And of course, with like watercolor, you don't do that. Watercolor, you start with your light first, right? And then go darker as you go, you know. Start with lights and then go darker as you go. So, oh gosh, what's that? Get that out of there. So but this background, as you can see, is not very dark. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to, so I put down some color from my background, and I'm going to take some water, see? Kind of make like I'm picturing in my mind like a desert. Some hills that there might be in the desert. Put in some water on that. A little bit more on this. Or we'll put some sprinkles. I'm going to let this dry and see how it looks. Actually, I want a little bit more. I probably watered down my yellow too much. I'm supposed to do a little bit more yellow. And actually, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of green to this. We'll see what happens. Might make it turn muddy. I don't know. Let's try it because I do want a little bit of green in here. Let's see. Because you know what? It's okay though, because desert kind of greens are kind of olivey. See, when I mix this green with this burnt sienna yellow, it's pretty. It looks kind of like a deserty green. So I'm gonna do like there's a hill, and then maybe one here, and there we go. All right. So I am going to let this dry, and I'll see you in a second. All right. It is dry. Look how beautiful it is. I know I was talking about watercolor making. You know, it's unpredictable. And gouaches too. You know, gouache and watercolor are similar. They are different, but they are similar. Do have similarities. Watercolor is less opaque, a lot more transparent, but you can still do similar things with gouache and watercolor. I like to use both of them together sometimes. Sometimes I'll when I'm painting something, I'll use watercolor as my background and then gouache over that. One thing I like about gouache is you can work more in layers as far as, because they're opaque, you know, it's I don't know, for me it's a little easier to paint certain types of paintings with gouache. Like, for example, when I was talking about you start out with dark, usually your darker colors first with gouache and then work up to light, you know, and in watercolor you can't do that. If you start with dark, then you won't see your light, right? So watercolor, your brain kind of, okay, you have to think opposite. I gotta preserve my lights first and then work up to my darker colors. So it's the kind of opposite, they're opposite in that way because of their transparency and opaqueness. But anyway, so look at this, is really beautiful. I love the colors. I loved how it turned out. And when I'm looking at it and I can see, like, this can be a hill, like I'm pretending I'm looking back, like in this, I'm looking back behind my owl. So in these, like my owl, this is the back of my owl, of course, and then my owl's looking down, maybe looking for prey, looking for its nightly meal, looking at the beauty, looking at the moon, whatever, right? Looking behind the owl, looking kind of above and down behind it. And so I kind of, you know, okay, that's kind of the scenery from that. So that's how I'm going to picture this. Okay, my owl is kind of my focal point. So my owl is probably going to be somewhere about around right here, sitting on a cactus. I'm going to keep to that theme because I like that. And about right there. And my moon, to me, it looks like a moon. Some people might think it's a sunset. Whatever I guess your mind thinks it is. I say it's a moon. My moon's going to be, you know, here somewhere. So I got to think, how do I want this to lay out? So I think with this, looking at this, I think this to me looks like where the ridge would be, right? You can kind of see that. I really like the way how this ridge is, but the way this picture is, I think I'm going to keep it more of just a sloping ridge. So I'll be taking my black gouache and probably painting right here. I mean, I could if I want to go down and create something more like this. But I think I'm just going to do a sloping ridge here. So this will be black. My moon's going to be about right here, I'm guessing, in this dip. One nice thing too about using a limited palette, which is, I'm going to see I got black and white, right? Then I'm using green, scarlet red, yellow, and the burnt sienna. So that's all I'm going to use. Whatever colors I can mix and make out of these colors is what I'm going to use on here. So when you do that, of course, it makes your painting very cohesive. It blends together, looks nice. You're not getting weird, funky colors, you know, that might not go well with each other. When you have a limited palette like this, it just makes your painting look so much more pleasing to the eye. Plus, to be honest, there's a lot about color theory I don't know. I am teaching myself about color theory. So using a limited palette for me makes it easier. I used to, when I first started painting, I was so tempted. Oh my gosh. especially with my watercolors, to buy all these different types of colors, and because they're so beautiful, right? And you know, I'd see people with these big palettes, all these colors in their palettes, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. But and I did, but some of my paintings, lots of them just turned out looking like crap. Let's see what we come up with. Is that pretty? I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna add more. And don't be, I know I'm this way, don't be scared to use too much paint. With gouache, sometimes I don't want to say I'm chintzy with my paint, but I hate wasting paint, right? Because I hate waste, first of all, and I hate wasting my paint. Sometimes I feel like if I, squirt too much out, I'm wasting it. But with gouache, oh, isn't that pretty? It turned out pretty like that. But with gouache, you kind of have to use a lot, to me. I mean, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Depends on the effect you're looking for, of course, with gouache. But like this, I want a dark sky. So I'm going to have to use quite a bit of paint to get that effect. Now I'm going to look at that. Do I like that? I think I'm going to go here, add a little bit of a little dip like this. And let's see, what else? Maybe make this a little here. How about a little bit more of a flatter top there. And then we'll kind of make this more, oops, a little bit dry. So while that dries, I'm gonna figure out what cacti I'm gonna put in here, how I'm gonna do it. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to accent some of my ground here while my black dries and figure out where else I'm going to put stuff. Let's see here. I'm going to use, this is when the fun part begins. I can start mixing colors. So I'm mixing some of that burnt sienna with black because I'm starting darker, and I'm going to work my way. Right? So let's this. And let's see, I think I also want a kind of a squiggly looking cactus. So after the scarlet red, I decided to add some yellow. Try to add a little bit of highlights and more definition to the hills. This video was getting super long, so I had to speed it up. And there I'm adding also some permanent yellow mixed with the scarlet red. I'm just slowly adding more and more lighter colors to this painting. And like I said with gouache, that's how it works. You kind of go from darker to lighter. The permanent yellow was making a really pretty color mixed in with that scarlet, so I really liked that. And then now this is just straight permanent yellow that I'm adding here. And when you're doing these type of paintings, you know, you just kind of have to just do what feels right, you know, just have fun with it. That's what I try to do. Try to not to, you know, take it too seriously. Then here I'm starting with some green because I wanted to start working on those other cactus. So I mixed some of that green with black to kind of give it a dark green color. And I used my filbert brush for that. And I was kind of adding some other darker colors to the other cactus. And there now that's just straight green with no black. That was the next layer, and then I really liked that green, so I added more to the other cactus kind of to tie them together. Kind of make it a little bit more cohesive. And then here I'm just adding some dots of that green to the other cactus. Those other cactus, I don't know really what they are. I just made them up, you know. So here I'm talking about the moon. I remember I thought, okay, where am I going to put that moon, you know, and that kind of determines the shadow of, you know, if you're adding shadows, how the moon's shining on the cactus, where you're going to put some shadows. Here I added some of that green. I had some more I add some yellow to that green and kind of to make it pop out more. That was the next layer. And then more yellow, as you can see, to that green, and I really liked that color. Adding a little more highlights and just kind of going more brighter and lighter as I go with those colors. Here I'm adding a little bit of, I'm thinking, okay, where the moon's going to be and what kind of shadow is the moon going to cast, right? That's what I was doing here. You know, doing that, even a little touch of shadow kind of gives it more of a dimension. You know, makes it look more real. You know, gives it just a better look to your painting. So it's not so flat. Gives it more kind of a dimensional look to it. Okay, so then I decided to add some blossoms. So I'm using some scarlet red, and it's a really pretty color, that scarlet red. I think I mixed a little black in with it to make it a little bit darker. I put some of that on there, and then I took that color that I had mixed with the red and a little bit of black and added some white to it, which kind of came out with this kind of, it's kind of like a pinky salmon-y color, which was really pretty. I really like that. And I decided to make a few little splatters with it too. If I remember right, I also had some yellow in there. And So basically, you know, I'm just layering colors onto this. And I got a little bit of paint on my beautiful black sky. And I remember like, oh my gosh, I gotta get rid of that. So the next thing to do was to make some kind of a cloud effect on my black sky. And I also had to speed this up because it was becoming a really long video. Unfortunately, I thought nobody's going to want to stick around and watch this whole thing. So I decided to go ahead and speed it up and do some voiceover. So yes, so what I'm doing here is I took my brush, dipped it in some water and I think a little bit of the yellow, and kind of just ran it across my black sky. And because it is gouache, it's going to pick up, it's going to reactivate, and some of that black is going to come off. And some of that yellow that is also on my brush is going to add some color to it. So it creates that kind of cloudy look like I had in my other paintings. And it turned out pretty well. So here I'm deciding, okay, I better put my owl in, because that was the next thing to do, was make sure I had my owl in there. Because the owl actually is the focal point, right? It should be the focal point. So I thought I better get my owl in there. And basically I just took my black gouache, straight black gouache, and not too much water so I didn't activate the layer underneath, and just kind of put in a basic shape of the owl. Nothing fancy, just like the basic shape from the back of the owl. And I used my other painting as a reference. And so that's pretty easy to do. So I added the moon, as you can see, with white gouache. And here I'm just adding some more highlights. White gouache mixed, the white color mixed in with a little bit of the yellow and orange that I used for the background there, and just kind of adding a little like moon glow to it. And adding it, just imagining, okay, if the moon was out and it was hitting the sky, the canyon there, the ridges there, where it would show the moon glow. Here I'm just adding some more of those highlights. So I wanted to make it kind of like a pink moon. Pink moon on April, gosh, what date is it? It's in April, the pink moon, pink full moon. Yeah, we talked about in the beginning of the video, that's right. So I added some pink to that. I had that salmon color and I added that to it, kind of in a swirly motion. And now I am adding some little, I took the white gouache and it's a kind of a watery mixture. And I'm adding those details with that watery white mixture to the back of the owl. Just kind of thinking, okay, how would it look kind of cool? Trying to make it look a little whimsy. And then it was time for some splatter. Gotta have some splatter, gotta have some stars in the sky. So I took a little bit of that white gouache, and Usually I like to use my fan brush for splatter, but I couldn't find it at the time. So I took this old toothbrush that I have and splattered. But it actually, gosh, I think it turned out a little bit too much splatter. I wasn't happy with it when I did it. I'm like, oh no, and it kind of got on some other parts of the picture. So, but I was able to correct it and fix it. And I added more, kind of blended some of that in to where it over splattered, and then was also able to cover it up with some more gouache. So luckily I was able to fix that. All right, so now it is time for some gel pen magic. I like using gel pens, especially this type of, I don't use gel pens with all my paintings. I know the ones I've shown here, I use a lot of gel pen, but there's a lot of paintings I don't use gel pen. Sorry, my head's in the way right there. That's funny. But with this type of painting, I do use gel pens. It adds a nice pop of color, especially like the whimsical paintings. I like to use gel pen, kind of whimsical looking type of paintings. With the dots and that type of look. I think gel pens just really stand out with those type of paintings. So here I added some dots. I used my bright yellow gel pen. And here I have kind of like one of my limey green gel pens, and I'm adding thorns to the cactus. I mean, you don't have to use gel pen. You could use, of course, gouache with a really fine tip brush and add it that way, or whatever way you was fun for you. But I do like to use gel pens for dots and sometimes I don't know, finer things if I want to make something stand out. I also like to use for white gouache. Well, if you want white to stand out in your painting, I use gouache, gel pens, and sometimes bleed proof white too. I really like bleed proof white. But so okay, here I added some. If you see it previously, a couple seconds ago, I took my micropen, added some birds in the distance, and then I took my yellow gel pen and added some dots to my moon, kind of to give it a little whimsical look. And here I'm just adding some more of that scarlet red to the hills there. I really like that scarlet red. I think it's pretty. So the whole idea behind this painting is, color, right? Building your colors. And using your imagination. Like I said, I really didn't plan anything out in this painting, and I think it turned out pretty cute. Here I'm adding some more white. I'm using my white gel pen and emphasizing some of those white dots from the splatter, just so it looks like the stars, like they're popping out more, adding the certain little highlights with my white gel pen. So I do have an Etsy shop, so I decided to put some of my paintings on my Etsy shop. And I do like to use, I love going to the thrift store, and I love to look for frames, because I think you can find the coolest frames at the thrift store personally. So what I like to do is find some cool frames for my paintings and post them on my Etsy shop. So that's what I'm going to do with this owl painting. And then those other two owl paintings, I already have 2 black frames for those. And I think I have a frame for this one too. I got to look through all my frames, and you know, I make sure the frames are all cleaned up and you know, they're not broken or anything. You know, they do, some of them do have little imperfections, but sometimes that's what makes them cool to me. So there's some kind of little, you know, little imperfections kind of give it a little bit of a character sometimes. But I always usually make sure that, you know, the frame and the painting I try to make sure they go well together. Okay, I am done. And in my description, I will tell you the paints that I used, the colors, because I know it probably wasn't very clear as I was talking, what colors I used. And just in case it wasn't. And then I'll also let you know what gel pen colors I used, because I did not use all of these that I have sitting out here. So yeah, I think it turned out pretty cool. I'll take the tape off, and I knew this was going to happen. Run underneath, I could tell as I was doing it. It's okay, because actually I think sometimes it makes it look kind of cool when it does that. Kind of gives it some effect and texture, or not texture, but it gives it kind of a neat effect. And then if you're going to put it in a frame anyway, that's okay. Sometimes what I can do with this one, well, I don't, gosh, should I dare? Oh, let's try it. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I will wet the whole edge. And I did wet the whole edge, and I did not like the way it turned out. So I'll show you a picture at the end. I ended up painting the edge black. So, I mean, which is luckily, you know, it looks fine. Actually, I kind of like it with the black edge. It kind of looks actually kind of cool. But I thought, you know, watercolor, I've done that before, where you kind of wet the edge and then the water nicely kind of runs into the edge, and it onto the edge, and it kind of gives it a neat, you know, it looks fine. But I did not like the way it looked when I did that with the gouache. Okay, it's time to sign it and call it a painting. And I like the way it turned out. I really like the colors. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and thank you so much for hanging through this video if you did. It's a long video, but please like and subscribe, and I'll be making another video soon. Bye-bye.